Hello and welcome to Passive Reconnaissance, the 6th episode as part of our Red Team Fundamentals mini-series. In this video, we'll be discussing one of the first initial stages of the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain, Reconnaissance. We'll be discussing more about the whole concept of reconnaissance, understanding the two different categories of it, and delving into one of them today. Furthermore, we'll supplement our understanding with a practical look at some modern network-based reconnaissance techniques. And by the end of this video, you should have the technical skills that are needed to conduct such reconnaissance with precision and abundance. Now, one important thing to note is that our discussion on passive reconnaissance will be divided amongst 5 different videos that will be released subsequently to each other. This is because passive reconnaissance is a large topic to simply cover in one video. By separating it this way, it gives us more time to release videos and stay consistent, but it also allows us to cover the topic in greater detail. So really, it's a win-win situation between us and you. My name is Irvin Asmil-Tennis, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and feel free to join our Discord server where you can keep up to date with our latest content, explore the courses we have available, contribute, chat, or whatever it may be. We're always active and are building a community of enthusiasts, professionals, and beginners alike. So what is reconnaissance? Reconnaissance, or Recon for short, is the initial stage of the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain framework. It is the stage where we gather and collect information that can help and be used to get the lay of the land, understand the target we're dealing with better, and overall map the attack surface, which can be gathered purely based on fingerprinting and scanning. Now, the whole concept of reconnaissance is not specific to red teaming or any other security assessment type such as penetration testing, but actually originates from military operations. In that sense, a military unit would conduct various scouting activities of a particular area or target to obtain more information about the enemy forces, the terrain, and the civilian activities in the area of operations. Now, amongst the numerous data sources of interest, the reconnaissance involves gathering intelligence of the target organization's networks, so stuff like IP addresses, domains, systems such as workstations, firewalls, proxies, maybe even in-house security systems like EDR solutions, vulnerabilities and weaknesses, and the potential attack vectors to which all of the points I've made contribute. So, long story short, reconnaissance is the act of gathering intelligence on our target and using it for our gain. Now, there are 2 main types of reconnaissance. You've got passive and active, and we'll discuss active reconnaissance once we're done with passive. And, their main differences are in the way that they are conducted. So passive reconnaissance, or otherwise known as open source intelligence, or OSINT for short, is the stealthier reconnaissance gathering technique. It involves gathering intelligence about the target organization using only publicly available information. What does that mean? It means that any intelligence that we gathered is not gathered by directly interacting with the target organization, and instead is done so by using public resources such as Google, GitHub, shared documents and files, advertisements, job postings, and much more. So the key point to remember here is that, reconnaissance or passive reconnaissance, no client system, network, or any other asset is directly interfaced with or interacted with, and all of our information is gathered using knowledge that is already known. Now, we'll get into the downsides of passive reconnaissance, after we finish our practical look at some of the techniques for which you can employ, but by analyzing public databases and other open sources, we can uncover insights into the organization's networks and infrastructure, deployed systems and technologies, personnel, and overall business operations and processes. So, in summary, by using passive reconnaissance, we can gather information on our target organization while staying covert and under the radar, building our knowledge base on the target without them even being aware of our presence. So at the start of the video, we said that the discussion on passive reconnaissance will be divided amongst 5 total videos. So to kind of give you an overview of what you can expect, in this video, we will cover passive reconnaissance that applies to organizational networks. We'll be analyzing DNS, domains, subdomains, certificates, and other network level information. In the second video, we'll be taking a closer look at the target websites, including the technology stack for which they're built on, how we can walk the websites, and also how we can uncover old content. In the third video, we'll be taking a closer look at gathering employee-related data, such as email addresses. In the fourth video, we'll be taking a look at ways we can search for organization information, such as files, documents, or any other resource of the same type using Google. And finally, in the fifth video, we'll be taking a look at ways in which we can automate our passive reconnaissance gathering through a tool named Spiderfoot. So as you can imagine, this is quite a lot of content to cover in a single video. This is why we've separated everything into 5 total videos. However, just note that by the end of this mini-series, on top of the mini-series we're already doing, you should be a skilled OSINT operator with a particular specialization for red team operations. So one of the first commands here that we are going to take a look at is called whois. And whois essentially interacts with whois databases that store various registrar information. And a registrar is essentially the entity that holds the information for which domains it refers to. So for instance, a registrar can hold the domain's owner, the domain's phone number, the domain's place of residency, and in some cases even the email address. So it's quite useful, and if we take a look at its manual page, you'll see that whois by itself doesn't really require much arguments, and typically simply by just using whois with sqassurance.com like so will provide the information that we are after. Now, as you can see here, much of the information is redacted for privacy, and essentially all that this is a organization taking security best practices to prevent adversaries online harvesting that information. So once a organization registers their domain, typically they'll get the option whether or not they want to redact the information that they provide about that domain or not. Now, in some cases, organizations might choose to not redact information. For instance, if we take a look at facebook.com, you'll see here that the output is in clear text. So in this case, we've got the organization name, which is Meta, the city where the organization resides in, and also we've got the phone number, and below here we've also got the email address. Now, one of the things to note is that whois will fetch the most recent information from the databases that it refers to. Now, we can get historical records, which are even more useful for us as red teamers, because it allows us to view old records for which might have only since then been made redacted. To do so, we can use the WhoisFreaks website. I'll leave a link for it in the description below. But if you navigate here to the tools, you'll find a historical whois lookup tool. So if we click on that, we'll get the exact same page that we are on. Before we run anything, I'm just going to clear the cache here and provide sqassurance.com. Now, once it's done loading, typically, here you can see 5 total records were returned, but the information provided here at the top has, actually been updated, I think a few weeks ago here. But this is the most recent information. But as we scroll down, we'll see various different snapshots that were taken, and scrolling down even further, we might uncover some clear text registrar information. So in this case, the domain for when it was registered in 2009, the owner of that domain chose to not redact information, and thus we can see here the registrant's name, the company's name as well, the country for where the company was based, their email address and phone number. Now, this is really useful for when we get to phishing, because it allows us to extract some useful information, such as the domain used for the email accounts, for then we can start building a list of. So all of that will make sense as we get to phishing, but the key point here is that with a tool such as WhoisFreaks, we can make references to old whois database records. Now, whois is great for extracting public records of the owners of a domain. Now, there'll come a scenario where we will want to extract the specific DNS records from a domain also. Now, a domain record essentially is a record as part of that domain that provides some sort of information. Now, this information can be an IPv4 address, IPv6 address, and more. Now, we'll get into them shortly, but to actually query DNS record information, we can use the dig command. Now, dig is pretty straightforward to use. If we take a look at its manual page here, you'll see here at the simple usage section, you can see the typical invocation of what the dig command looks like. So we'll obviously start off with the dig command, then we'll have the option of providing the DNS server we are querying, then we'll specify the actual domain we're querying, and finally we'll specify the type of record we are querying. So dig, we won't actually specify a server. We could here. Typically it will use the DNS server that is already configured with the operating system, and we can just skip that step and proceed instantly to the domain. So we'll provide sqlassurance.com, and we'll omit actually providing a record. We could provide a record such as the A record, which essentially points to an IP address. But if we run the command as is, you'll see the various information that is returned. So you'll see here that by default, it returns the A record, which stores the IP address of the domain and some various, other gibberish like information. So there are numerous records with dig. We saw the A record previously, which returned the IP address of the domain, but also we've got the MX record. Now, the MX record essentially identifies the mail servers of a particular domain. So if we execute this, you'll see that in the answer section here, we get 2 records. And in this case, the mail servers are provided by Ionos, since that is the registrar for which we've registered our domain. So we get that by default. And then also, down here below at the additional section, we also get their IP addresses. Lastly, I'm going to show you the name server record, the NS record, which essentially returns the name servers or the authoritative name servers of that particular domain. So in this case, sqlassurance.com, there are 4 total name servers. And then also you've got some IPv6 records here. So, by using the A, MX, and NS records, we can start to better map the DNS level information of an organization. Now, there are numerous other records. For instance, you've got the CNAME record, which essentially specifies an alias from one domain to another. In this case, there isn't any, we've not specified any CNAME record, but there are numerous other records for which we suggest that you do some research on and see the information that you can extract. Now, one of the, not per se issues, but one of the factors by running the dig command by default here is that it returns a lot of information. Now, we can suppress the information returned by using specific command line parameters. Now, there are numerous with dig. One of them is called the know-all command line parameter, and essentially suppresses all sections of the output except those explicitly requested. So for instance, if we run this command as is, you'll see that because we've not specified the specific sections of the output that we want, we've got no information. Now, one of the most important section, that we saw here previously is the answer section. And the answer section will essentially return the answer for the type of record you are querying. Now, to obtain the answer section, you can use the +answer switch here, and essentially by running it, the output here is much cleaner and much more succinct. Now, there is actually another way we can specify, the output that we want to receive. And one of those ways is by using the short switch. And the short switch will only return the resolved value. So for instance, in the case of the A record, we'll only get the IP address of that domain. So this is pretty useful, when you're using scripts, maybe to, automate the record retrieval. So by using the short switch, we can just get the information that we want. So have a play around with Dig. There's a lot of options here that it supports. Have a look at the various different domain records there are. Try to, see the information that you can extract and really start getting the feel for using Dig. Now, although Dig provides useful information, it can be quite tedious by having to run the specific commands that we want all the time manually. And ViewDNS.info, again, I'll leave a link for it in the description below, provides us with a way to extract information automatically. So, just glimpsing at the various different tools here, we'll discuss IP history, subdomain discovery, but also, you can check whether a site is accessible from China by using the Chinese firewall test. You can also see if, a site is down, perform some whois record lookups, get the HTTP headers of a particular domain, and even perform some port scanning. So we'll get into everything just shortly, but one of the first tools that we're going to have a look at is the IP history tool. And IP history essentially shows you all of the IP addresses that were previously associated with a particular domain. So for instance, if we are to provide sqassurance.com here and use the lookup function here, we'll see that, we'll get a various, 4 different columns on the information provided. So you'll get the IP addresses, the location of where that IP address resides, the owner, and when it was last seen. So, 5.181.124.186 is our current IP address of our VPS, but, going down here, also, you've got some IP addresses of a IP in France, and by using this information here, you can kind of start mapping the IP addresses that the organization may have used prior. Now, another tool that is available is subdomain discovery, and essentially it will allow you to identify all of the subdomains that are associated with a particular domain. Now, a subdomain is essentially a portion of a website that is assigned a different address. Now, that is a domain address. It's not really got to be a specific IP address, but it can be. But by using this tool here with our domain, using the discovery function here, we can start fingerprinting the various different subdomains that are associated with the parent domain. Now here, we've got admin, FTP, www. These two in particular are very useful when we will be performing active reconnaissance, because some of these subdomains here might be hosting some functionality that might be out of date, or FTP in this case might provide us with some files of the organization. And essentially by using this tool, we can start mapping the various, different subdomains that are associated with the domain. Now, one of the other tools that we're going to use here is the DNS record lookup tool. And essentially it will allow us to look up the all of the records that are associated with a domain. So previously, with Dig, we had to manually issue every single lookup for the record we were interested in. But, by using this tool here and running lookup, you'll see that all of the records are provided at once. So, looking here, we can see the various different NS records that we previously saw, the mail exchange records, the A record, which points to the IP address, and also you get several other records such as TXT, SOA, and more. So by using this tool, we can automatically get all of the records that are associated with the domain without us having to manually run it. Now, another great tool is DNSDumpster, and what this tool does is gather the various DNS level information and kind of groups it all into one. So to put it into perspective, as per usual, we're going to provide the domain, run start test here, and as we start scrolling down, we'll see the various information that pertains to this domain. So up here, you've got the information about where the system is located on the global map. You've got the various hosting providers, services, or banners. And as we start scrolling down here, you'll see the various different DNS records, their values. But going down here even further, you'll see a kind of graphical map of the entire domain and its records. Now, this is really useful, when you want to gain a hierarchical overview of what a domain looks like, and essentially its services, its records, and it provides exactly that. Now, one of the issues, and not really an issue in a sense of DNSDumpster, but an issue that, it's not actually recording those subdomains we talked about earlier. But still, you can see the various different records for that parent domain. So you've got mail exchange here, you've got the A record, and then also you've got the name servers as well. So really, it provides a lot of information on the site, so use it. And also, you can download and save this information for later use, but it's really useful to kind of gain all of the DNS level information into one. Now, going back to our command line based tools, we've got DNSRecon. And DNSRecon is essentially a tool that allows us to automatically obtain numerous DNS level information. So just as an outline here, you can check all name server records for zone transfers. This requires active reconnaissance, so we won't get into this. But also, you've got the enumeration of general DNS records such as mail exchange, TXT, and some numerous other enumeration techniques that this tool can perform. Now, its installation is pretty simple. It highlights every single aspect that is required to get this tool running. So we'll just start by copying this command here, and essentially it will install UV, which is the package manager that is required. So we'll just execute curl here. Now, going back into the installation, we need to clone the repository. So actually, before we run this command, just cd into tools. Here we go. We're going to clone this repository, and then we're going to need to install all of its dependencies. So just cd into DNSRecon and run uvsync. So with all of its dependencies installed, all that remains is running DNSRecon. So we're just going to copy paste this command in the requirements section, run it, and everything is installed correctly. So to actually obtain a more readable output, we can either use help or H. And here we'll see the various different command line switches that is supported by DNSRecon. Now, there are numerous different switches that you can use. One of the main ones here that we are going to use is the D switch, which specifies the target domain for which we want to perform DNSRecon on. And also, you've got other switches here, such as, specifying an input list of a file that contains a list of domains. Also, you can specify a custom name server, specify, an IP range for reverse lookup brute force, which, we're not going to perform various other attacks here, specify the number of threads to use, and the list goes on. So to keep it basic, we're going to specify the D switch and then specify our domain. So sqaassurance.com. And here you can see all of the checks, all of the passive checks that DNSRecon performs is displayed here on output. So the most useful information that we can see here is the DNS records. So we've got, again, the TXT record, we've got the A record, several mail exchange records, name server records, and the list goes on. Now, to save it as part of a file, you can, DNSRecon supports numerous different file options here. So we've got XML, CSV, JSON. So we're just going to use JSON here. So specify the domain, sqaassurance.com, J for JSON, and then we're going to need to specify the file name. So we're just going to specify sqassurance.com.json like this. So when we run this, you'll see that the file is indeed saved in the JSON file that we specified. So if we list the contents of this file, use JQ here to parse the JSON output, you'll see here that we have obtained a wealth of information that pertains to the DNS level. Now, one of the last options I want to show you here is the K-switch, and essentially all that this does is perform enumeration on the certificates of our target domain. Now, if our target domain is running HTTPS, it will have a specific set of certificates or certificate for which the K-switch can enumerate. Now, to enumerate, it will use a service called crt.sh, which we'll get into shortly. But just by running, I think it's uv run DNSRecon here, specifying the D switch and then the K switch here, you'll see that we start performing the certificate search enumeration. So by looking at the output here, we were able to identify a certificate for www.sqassurance.com and some for the wildcard. Now, wildcard is essentially a specifier in DNS that allows it to associate any subdomain with a single certificate. Now, the details of this is not really important, but the important thing is that we can use the K-switch to extract the various different records. So for instance, here we were able to extract a specific subdomain of sqassurance.com, and this subdomain is www. But typically a certificate can also store information on the subdomains of that particular domain. Now, in this case, it was only able to find one, but if we were, for instance, to use this with facebook.com, you can see here that we were able to extract even more information, such as the channel subdomain, the prod subdomain, the v6 subdomain, and the list goes on. So essentially, DNSRecon stands as a useful tool for automatic DNS level information gathering. Now, another useful tool, especially for subdomain enumeration, is subfinder. And subfinder, if we scroll down here in its description, it will highlight that it's a subdomain discovery tool that returns valid subdomains for websites using passive online resources. So essentially, it uses resources such as Google, Bing, VirusTotal to essentially enumerate the subdomains of a particular domain using records that are already out there. So, we're not actively quote unquote brute forcing a particular domain to identify its subdomains. Now, to install Subfinder, in its description here, you'll find an install section here, and here we can copy this command that requires go to install. So if we go back into our terminal and paste the command in, Go will proceed with downloading and installing Subfinder. Now, once Subfinder installs, you'll actually find its installation inside the Go bin directory that should be in your home directory. So here, you can see Subfinder there. So if we simply remove lsal and use Subfinder like so, by running it, you'll see that Subfinder executes as expected. So earlier we said that Subfinder works in a way where it uses public sources to enumerate the subdomains of a particular domain. Now, the subdomains that it uses can be fetched by using the ls switch. Now, if we run this command as is, you'll see various different domains here. So you've got DNS repo, FOFA, full hunt, and here you'll see a wildcard symbol, and essentially what this specifies is that any resource marked with it needs a specific key or token to work. So this key and token will be provided through a specific API service, but some of these sources here don't require a specific API key, such as Alien Vault, which is really useful. You've also got Hacker Target here and several others. So before we actually issue a scan, we're quickly going to view the type of options it supports, and you'll see here that you've got numerous different options that can specify how your output is presented, numerous configuration options, an option to update the tool, an option to specify the sources that you want, but the option that we want is the dswitch. And the dswitch essentially specifies the domain that will be enumerated. So using subfinder with our domain of sqaassurance.com, by running it, the tool will perform its passive reconnaissance to gather all of the subdomains of that domain. So if we wait here a little, it can take quite a while because it's got to use numerous different sources. But once it's finished, we'll get a list of all of the domains that it found, or sorry, subdomains that it found. So here we can see that we've got www, we've got FTP, and also we've got admin. Now we saw these earlier in the ViewDNS tool that we discussed, but one of the things I want to note here is that by default, Subfinder does not use all of its sources for enumeration. Now, to use all of the sources, we're going to need to specify the all switch, and all of the sources, including those that need and do not need an API key, will be used as part of enumeration. Now, keep in mind, not all of the sources that do not need an API key are actually used, so this will also use them all up. So if we run this, and wait a little while, we might get some more information from those other sources, but that is not always guaranteed. So here, we were able to identify those three domains, or sorry, those three subdomains that we've identified earlier. But by using the all switch, we've also included all of them just to be sure that we're not missing anything out. Now, one of the things that I've mentioned is that Subfinder, it has several different sources that require API keys to use. So if we use Subfinder with the LS switch again, you'll notice here that several of these sources with the wildcard require a specific API key. Now, I suggest you have a look through all of these sources, create accounts, and add the API keys as part of them. But to demonstrate how all of this would be performed, we are going to use VirusTotal as our exemplar. So to use VirusTotal as a source, what you're going to want to do is create an account and then navigate into your profile section here, select API key, and your API key here will be blurred out. Now what we're going to do is simply select copy here. So this will copy the API key into our clipboard, and what we're going to do is we are going to use it, but before we do so, we need to update Subfinder's configuration file. So the configuration file is located in your home directory. So if we use ASAL to view our home directory, and it's actually stored in the config subdirectory, and you'll see that various different tools are available here that store their configurations. But the one that we are after is Subfinder right here. So what we'll do is list the contents of it, and you'll see here that we have a YAML configuration file called provider config. So if we actually view this file using Vim, you'll see here all of the sources will be presented in a way where you'll see the source's name, and then in these square brackets is where you'll place your API key. Now for VirusTotal, we have it right here. So what we're going to do is select insert and paste our API key and then save it. Once we've saved it, essentially we can now use it. Now before we actually use Subfinder in the way that we've done so prior, I'm just going to add the vSwitch that will specify verbose output. So we'll actually see in real time which sources are being used. So for instance, if we execute this, you'll see that here we have various different sources here for which passive reconnaissance is being performed on, but also you'll notice virus total here is returning some results which wouldn't have happened previously because we did not specify an API key. So as you see here, we were able to obtain several more subdomains purely by specifying a single API key for, well, just a single resource, and by doing so, we can obtain more results. So I suggest, you have a look through the various different sources that are available, create a few accounts and set up some API keys, because, you can obtain a lot more information by doing so. Now, before we actually wrap up on subfinder, I'm just going to show you how you can save your files into JSON for later. So here, you can see by using the O switch here, we are able to write all of the output to a file. And then also by using the O and uppercase J switch, we can write the output in JSON format. Now, you also might want to include the collect sources switch, which will include all of the sources for which found the specific subdomains as part of the output. So by using the command as we've done so prior, we're going to specify our output as sqa.assurance.com.json, specify the output format in JSON, and then also we're going to specify the collect sources switch as well. So by running it, the collection process will start. And then once it's done, our output should be stored in sqa.assurance.com.json, and we can use JQ to format the output here. So you can see here all of the results are displayed. You can see here the sources that were used to identify, maybe several different sources, as is the case here. So then, you can save this output whenever you need to later on. Now, we've seen crt.sh being used quite regularly throughout our tools, and essentially what this tool is a way in which we can search for the certificates of the target domain for which we are investigating. So for instance, if we were to use sqa.assurance.com here, you'll see that not only are we provided with the most recent certificate, but also, we can view some historical ones. So you've got numerous different columns here. You've got its respective identifier, when it was issued, when it's due to expire. You've also got its common name and some matching identities here, which is really useful for finding subdomains. And then also you've got the issuer name, so who issued the certificate, that is the certificate authority. So if we want to view a certificate, we'll do so by selecting its certificate ID. And here we'll see a wealth of information about a particular certificate. Now, one of the most useful features as part of the certificate is the subject alternative name. And all that a subject alternative name, or quote SAN, does is essentially identifies multiple host names or subdomains for which that certificate applies to. So say when an organization is registering a certificate, during the registration process, they might specify several different subdomains for which the same certificate they are generating to will essentially apply to. And in this case, we've got admin, we've got FTP, and then we've got the actual sqa.assurance.com domain. So there's a lot of information here, and I suggest you kind of have a look here, get used to this information, see the various different options provided here. But typically, the subject alternative name is going to be the data piece that we are after. Now, one of the last tools that we are going to briefly cover is Shodan. And Shodan is a search engine, just like Google is for websites. Shodan is for everything internet connected devices. So essentially every single web server, every single camera, and any single device that can connect to the internet. So it's really powerful, and the amount of data that it harvests from these endpoints is enormous. So to understand the assets it covers and what it harvests, if we go into the explore page here, we'll be presented with several different categories. So we can search industrial control systems, databases, network infrastructure, and also video game servers. For instance, if we were to take this network infrastructure section here, you can search for specific network software and hardware, such as Pi-hole, for instance. So you can search for Pi-hole servers, you can search for Citrix servers, and all of this searching can be accompanied by search filters, which we'll get into shortly. Now, if, for instance, we were to explore Citrix here, select this, you'll see here the various different publicly exposed Citrix instances. Now, every single instance will have its IP address, its domain name, who it's hosted by, and in this case it's got a signature that highlights various different Citrix applications. Now, if, for instance, we click on one of these IP addresses here, we'll see numerous information about it. So we'll get the general information, which will just essentially outline where the IP is located, who the organization is that owns the IP address, the ISP, the ASN number, but also you'll see the various different ports that were identified. So in this case, we've got port 80, port 135, 139, 445, and the list goes on. So, by using Shodan in this way, we can also gain an overview of these services that are running on our target systems. But kind of going down here, you'll get the various different header information about the different services. So here we can see IIS7 being ran on port 80, Microsoft RPC on 135. Scrolling down here even further, we'll see 3389, which is RDP, and here you'll see various different messages that are part of it. So there's a lot of information that you can gather from these location points, and I suggest you kind of have a look through Shodan and explore all of its features in terms of the information that it provides. Now, as we said before, Shodan has several different search filters that it provides. So you can search for specific assets by country, by its IP address, by host name, by various different HTTP components as well, and also even through SSL too. So there's a significant amount of information you can search by. Now, some of these tags will be restricted to specific accounts. So, accounts that have purchased a specific Shodan plan, for instance, might have access to the vuln tag, but, a basic account such as we wouldn't. So if you want to, view the different plans that are available, you can simply select billing here, and you'll be redirected to the various different features that is provided by each membership. So before we actually view some of these filters, such as IP, you can go into the examples page to view a reference in how to use them. So you can see here, you'll specify a filter, you'll specify a colon, and then, the specific value for that filter. In case you want to use multiple filters at once, you'll be separating them with a comma. So it's pretty simple to use. Typically, it's just getting a hang on the type of filters that are available, but the more you use Shodan, the more you'll get used to it. So in our case, what we're going to do is we're going to use the IP filter, and then we're going to specify the IP address of the SQA assurance.com domain. So here we see, you've got the IP address earlier, you've got some basic information regarding this asset here, but by clicking on it, we'll be able to find its host names. It was able to identify several host names, as you can see here. Its information about its, city where it's located in, numerous different IP level information here. And then also you've got the open ports here as well. Now, in case, you're struggling to write your own filters, you can use advanced search, which will allow you to build different search queries out of the data you provide. So for instance, let's select has a SSL TLS certificate, yes. But then if we go up here a little bit, I believe you were able to specify the IP address. So from this host here. So here you can see that the search query was automatically built for us, and we can simply select search here to use that search filter. So here you can see that we obtained the same result as we have done before. Now, many different features will require you getting a membership. However, Shodan offers a single membership, pay once, have the subscription forever, for $49 if you're interested in it. But by what we've showcased today, we can still gather some useful information. So I suggest you have a look through Shodan, get the hang of it, get the hang of using it, start exploring its features, and maybe even get a membership subscription. Now, although the data we've covered is useful and can be leveraged for all subsequent stages of the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain, passive reconnaissance is not without its downsides. Now, because the information we gathered utilizes public sources, this could, one, provide us with an incomplete and outdated set of information, meaning that our intelligence may not be accurate. For instance, say we've gathered a list of compromised email accounts and their passwords, attempting to authenticate to various services such as Microsoft 365. Those accounts may trigger alarms for the blue team, as those accounts may be disabled or non-existent. And two, it may lead to the lack of technical depth regarding the live systems in place. So it goes without saying that relying solely on publicly available information means that we may miss critical vulnerabilities or weaknesses that would otherwise be exposed through active fingerprinting. And lastly, it's worth mentioning that even though we are not directly interacting with the target, improper or unauthorized access to public data can still lead to legal issues. Therefore, before you attempt to perform any passive or maybe even active reconnaissance, ensure that your rules of engagement is signed off prior to the commencement of the activities. And this will help you avoid any legal trouble in the future. Surprisingly, actually, it's quite common because some tools that claim they're using passive techniques actually implement some sort of active reconnaissance in the background. So just keep that in mind. We truly hope you've enjoyed what was covered here, and whilst we've only just scratched the surface, all the subsequent videos that are to come will cover this concept in greater detail. And also I've left some reference links for some publicly available resources where you can find some techniques of passive reconnaissance you can implement. So in the next video, we'll cover the passive reconnaissance on websites in more detail, and then we'll continue from there until we've covered everything that there is to do with passive reconnaissance from a red teaming standpoint. It's been your host, Urban Tennis, and I will see you in the next one.